Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the James River Chapter Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy meeting titled Nourishment for Communities Starving for Justice. And I'd like to extend a warm welcome to everybody joining us this afternoon. And excuse me. And so I first of all want to thank Sheila Hennessy for being our Zoom logistics person behind the scenes. She's wearing many hats today. So as you know, the theme for the meeting is Nourishment for Communities Starving for Justice. And so Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy is in the business of nourishing communities. The mission for the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy is to advocate for justice in the Virginia's policies and practices through prayer, education, and advocacy. So we are excited about the speakers that we have with us today. I want to thank each and every one of them for being here with us. The beauty of having a Zoom meeting is that we have people from as far away as Ohio, Reverend Roslyn Hughes, who's with the Presbyterian Peace Foundation, will be speaking to us about the Guns and Garden program. And then also we have people from across the state joining us as speakers, and we're just really thrilled to have everybody here joining us. So with that, I would like to share with you, for opening up our meeting today, is a video of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, and it's to remember the March on Washington. The 60th year anniversary is this year. And so I thought it would be appropriate and good to have this video shared with everybody regarding the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. And so what I really like about this video that we'll be seeing is that we'll see Martin Luther King, as well as his son and his granddaughter, presenting some of the speech for Martin Luther King on that day. So Sheila, if you're ready to roll that for us, that would be great.
Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice.
Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood.
Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children.
So even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream.
It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream.
I have a dream.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
Because I have a dream, my 4 little children
will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin,
but by the content of their character.
I have a dream today.
This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning.
My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty.
Of thee I sing.
Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride.
From every mountainside,
let freedom ring.
When we let it ring from every village and every hamlet,
from every state
and every city,
we will be able to speed up that day
when all of God's children,
black men and white men,
Jews and Gentiles,
Protestants and Catholics,
will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual.
Free at last?
Free at last.
Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
No, every time I see Martin Luther King give his speeches, I always get a chill that runs up my back and spine. And thank you, Sheila, for playing that for us. So with that in mind, Martin Luther King said that justice at its best is power correcting everything about love. So today, We're going to share peace, love, power, and justice. And to start us off with the first half of the meeting, we have Kim Bobo, Executive Director with the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy, Robert Lester, who is the coordinator for civic engagement, and then Sheila Hurley, who is our faith organizer. Before we have Kim come on, I did want to provide a little introduction for those of you that are new to joining us at the James River chapter of the Interfaith. Kim, I've known Kim for 6 years now, and so I thought I knew a lot about Kim, but before the meeting, I did a little Google search on Kim Bobo. And so I found out something about Kim that I never knew before, and I wanted to share it with you because I'm sure after you hear it, you'll be very, as I was, very impressed with this. So in 2012, Kim was the recipient of an award called and I'll probably butcher the pronunciation, but the Peachum and Terrace Peace and Freedom Award. So just to give you a little background on this award is a Catholic Peace Award, which has been given annually since 1964 in commemoration of the 1963 encyclical letter Pacem in Terris, which means peace on earth, of Pope John the 23rd. It is awarded to honor a person for their achievements in peace and justice, not only in their country, but in the world all over. It has been granted to people of different faiths and creeds. Kim was recognized in 2012 for being educated, for having educated a nation about the prevalence of wage theft and injustice that disproportionately affect the poor among us. So we are indeed blessed to have such a gifted person in Kim Bobo as our executive director for the Interfaith, as well as talking to us about what's going to be happening and moving forward with the Interfaith here in Virginia. Thanks for being with us, Kim. We know your schedule is busy, and it's always a pleasure to have you with us.
Thanks, John, and thanks to all of you on the call this afternoon. I was charged with going through our possible legislative agenda for 2024. As you can imagine, it's a little hard to figure out exactly what we're going to do, given that we don't know who will be in leadership of either the House or the Senate. But we're moving forward nonetheless. The board has reviewed the policy proposals several times, and I can tell you where I think we will definitely be working. I'll tell you the things where it's possible we'll be working, depending on where things come out with the election. In terms of health equity, as you know, we were a major leader on Medicaid expansion. We've pushed on maternal health. We've done a fair amount in this space. We will be continuing with our effort to try to get an unconscious bias training for healthcare professionals. There's a huge amount of interest on this. We had bipartisan leadership on this last year. We're hoping to have that again this year. We will also be supporting a bill that Kathy Tran will reintroduce on healthcare for undocumented children. These are children who would otherwise be eligible for Medicaid in Virginia, except that they don't have documentation. There's about 13,000 of these children. They're low-income immigrant children. Lots of states cover them. We think Virginia should as well. So that one will do for sure. Then there's a number of ways that Virginia could use its Medicaid dollars better and or get more Medicaid dollars. And so there's like several different things we're exploring in that area. One is we've already got the ability to use Medicaid for school nurses, for public school nurses, but we're not doing that, right? So again, that's one where it's not clear we have to do legislation, but certainly we're doing behind the scenes work on that. Community health workers, there's 1,400 of them or so in the states that are really frontline outreach workers. Right now, they're being paid for mostly by pandemic funds. We got to figure out how to pay for them long term. Again, it's a place where Medicaid monies could be used. And then there's a few states have become pilots for a program to get food as medicine. So basically, a doctor would be able to write a prescription that says this person needs good food, and it would help them get more food. Again, we're very interested in that. There's kind of a coalition working on that. If the coalition wants to move forward, we're all in on that one because we think it's just a very interesting option. So that's our healthcare work. Criminal justice reform. As you know, last year, we passed a modest reform on solitary confinement. It wasn't everything we wanted, but it did put in place some standards around the use of solitary confinement. We would still like a day limit on the number of days people can be put in solitary, but unless there's changes in the House and Senate in a significant way, I don't think we can win it. So again, that's one where I'm not sure we'll put in a bill on it next year because I just am not sure we can win it. We have been in conversation with Delegate Webert, who's right now the minority whip, Republican majority whip in the House. And is on the public safety subcommittee too, which is the first one that hears all the prison things in the House. And he's really interested in working with us on a bill to limit the use of dogs in prison. You may have seen some newspaper coverage on how between 2017 and 2022, dogs bit people in prisons in Virginia 271 times. And the next highest state in that time period had only 15 dog bites. So again, what we're doing in Virginia is outside the norm. And it's one of those things that's often when you use dogs to extract people from prisons or to deal with individual incarcerated people, it's really considered another form of torture. So again, I think we will likely move forward on that in large part because we have a really strong Republican patron who's interested in working with us on this issue. So I'm pretty excited about that. We supported a bill last year to get an oversight commission to sort of oversee what happens in the Department of Corrections. It's the largest agency in Virginia, and it had no independent oversight. The money to get this office started did get included in the final budget. Yay. And so the office is being set up. They're hiring a director, but we will need to go back this year and get the bill codified and put into code so that, if money runs out, then the office doesn't disappear. So again, Senator Marsden is going to carry that in the Senate. He carried it last year. And we had a great meeting with Delegate Greenhaw, Republican, on that initial public safety subcommittee too. And she expressed interest. She's got a tight election, so we don't know if she'll be back. But if she is, she'd be a very good patron for it. Otherwise, I think Delegate Hope is interested in carrying that in the House. So again, we've got patrons basically lined up for this one. I think that one will pass because it's already in the budget. And I think there's broad support among both Republicans and Democrats that we desperately need this kind of oversight of the Department of Corrections. We supported a bill last year on profiteering, basically trying to get phone calls free to people who are incarcerated. Senator Boysko led that. She's going to do the bill again. We'll support it. We do not yet have a House patron on that. There's a number of other things we're exploring, how to encourage the department to use Pell Grants more, is there anything we could do in this sentencing parole stuff? Probably not this year, but again, looking at some of that. And again, the 15-day limit on solitary only if we've got a shot at it in the House and Senate. So that's, again, there's a lot of moving pieces on the criminal justice reform, but again, I think we've got a very good shot at several of these things because we've got bipartisan leadership already on this. On affordable housing, there's kind of three different parts on affordable housing. First is more money to build housing, or more money for rental assistance. So money. And those will all be essentially budget fights. Then there's all the rental reforms around trying to limit evictions, trying to make there more transparency around leases. So there's a bunch of stuff. And on that, we will essentially follow the lead of the Virginia Poverty Law Center. They do great work in this space, and we will support their work. The piece that we're going to be leading on, I think, is a bill called Yes in God's Backyard. So you've heard of NIMBY. This is YIGBY. Yes in God's Backyard. It is a bill that just passed in California. Now, I know we won't mention that in Virginia because they don't like California. They only like bills that pass, south of us. But it did just pass in California. We've got all their bill language. We're talking to all their leadership who worked on the bill to get all the ins and outs on it. But it essentially says that congregations have the right to build affordable housing on their property, that this is part of our mission, and that we have the right to do it without going through zoning changes. And we feel like, honestly, we probably can't win this in year one because the bill has never been considered, and Virginia doesn't move very quickly on anything. It'll probably take a couple years on this. But again, even getting people talking about this, we think will stimulate congregations thinking more about using their land and buildings for affordable housing. So Senator Hashmi, we met with her the other night. She is interested in patroning this in the Senate. And we've got a meeting at the end of the month with Republican delegate Carrie Coiner, who would be just the dream patron in the House because she's on the Housing Commission. She's very well respected. And again, anytime you can get bipartisan leadership on this stuff, it's the dream in Virginia, and probably the dream anywhere. But so again, I'm excited about that. It'd be really fun having Virginia Interfaith leading on this, some of this housing work. And Sheila's been carrying this work for us, and she's doing a great job. We've got the fact sheets already. And anyway, it's all good. And then we have sort of this broad bucket that is what we call working family support. So if we have a shot at paid sick days, we will run a paid sick day bill again. Again, this is probably not possible unless the Dems were to take both the House and the Senate. But if they did, I think we would have a very decent shot at getting a paid sick day standard. But as those of you in the James River chapter know, one of the, as we call them, squishy Dems on this topic is in your area. And so we've actually just finished doing a poll in Senator Mason's district that we are hoping to share with him soon, which essentially shows that 92% of voters in the district think there should be a paid sick day standard. All the polls on this issue show essentially the same thing, just off the chart support for this. But again, we want to encourage him and hope we could get his support for this if he is reelected. We know he has a tough race going on. So anyway, so we've run the poll in 5 different districts and are hoping to share the results with those senators soon. And Delegate Gian Ward, who if the Dems take the House, she will likely chair the Labor and Commerce Committee. And she's agreed to carry the bill in the House if the Dems take back the House. Again, I don't think we will run it unless we just run a bill for symbolism. If the Republicans remain control, because they've been vehemently opposed to this. We'll also do support. We're doing work on childcare, trying to get money for childcare folks. And we've got meetings that we're setting up in childcare facilities with 10 different legislators who are considered important in both the House and the Senate. So doing work in that. And then, there's a number of things that are possible, right? We did a FOIA on child labor violations in Virginia, and there's a huge increase in child labor violations in the state. The FOIA that came back from the Department of Labor and Industries is 600 pages worth of violations over the last couple years in Virginia, including some things as egregious as 11 and 12-year-old immigrant children working in a recycling facility overnight in the Hampton Roads area. So again, there's some pretty egregious stuff. So again, I'm not sure what we can do. We've been talking to some folks about, is there something we ought to do in that space? And maybe there might be something there. I know I talked with the head of the AFL-CIO the other day, Doris Krause-Mays, and asked what's labor's top priorities. And she said, number one is repeal of right to work. Number two is collective bargaining for public sector workers. And again, I don't, if unless there's sort of significant changes in both the House and the Senate, it's hard for me to see how those could pass. But who knows? And we would have to have a fair amount of conversation with the board because we've never worked on those issues. We do have a policy supporting the right to organize, but we've not really talked about sort of these broader labor things. So we'd have to have some more conversations on that, but that's kind of out there in the conversation in general right now. The other two things that are, again, possible, the board really wants us to do some work on gun reform. And I know the James River chapter has been really involved in advocating on reducing gun violence. The one that I think the board wanted us to do work on is a ban on assault weapons. And I think there's interest in us supporting this, whether or not it can win this year, that we just need to be out as a faith community. We need to be out there standing on it. Delegate Helmer carried the bill last year. We've reached out to him and his office, and they don't want to talk to us until after the elections. So anyway, so I'm assuming we will support the same bill. We're assuming he's going to carry it. He doesn't have much of an election challenge, so I think he will be back in. But nonetheless, he doesn't want to talk until after the election. So the day after the election, we will try to get this nailed down. The last one is we've been part of a coalition with the Commonwealth Institute looking at our tax policy in Virginia. And there clearly are things we could do to make a fairer tax policy. And some of that potentially could generate significant dollars that could be invested in the common good. The one that apparently folks around the country are getting some momentum on is around a millionaire's tax. So a special additional tax for people who have income higher than $1 million. And that could potentially generate $1 billion for social programs in Virginia. That's a lot of money that could go to affordable housing or childcare or something good. So again, we are in conversation on that. We do, there are things that we lead on, and then there are many things that we do in partnership with others. So this is kind of a wait and see time as we sort of sort out what's going to happen with the elections. So speaking of the elections, let me turn it over to my colleague, Robert Lester, who is one of the newer staff at VICPP. He's been with us a little over a year. He's doing an amazing job leading our civic engagement work. We were just on a call earlier today with some other colleagues doing civic engagement. And after Robert spoke, they all said, he makes me tired just listening to him about all the things you are doing. But we are really doing the most ever, at least since I've been here, that we've ever done on the elections. And it makes sense because every House and Senate seat is up. And frankly, the best way to move our issues this year is to really have a presence on civic engagement. So Robert has a long history of having done this kind of work, and he's just been such a blessing to us. So Robert.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you, Kim. Good afternoon, all, and thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Again, thank you for allowing me a few minutes to talk about our civic engagement plan and strategy that we have going forward this year. Kim already mentioned some of the things that VICPP will be advocating for in the fall or coming in the next General Assembly. But to get to that point, we are really focused on these elections that are coming up. So as I mentioned, civic engagement, our program for this year involves, we have about 7 different areas that we are focused on. Of course, we're doing or encouraging voter registration. If you come in contact with anyone, and especially our youth, whether they're relatives or neighbors or things like that, we're strongly asking folks to spread the word on making sure folks are registered to vote. That's where everything starts, is with being registered to vote. And we have technology now that we can use to help and assist folks with registering to vote. You can use your cell phone. There's a website that you can go to, and it's very, very easy to use. And I'm just going to mention it here. It's the website is vote.elections with an S .virginia.gov, and Sheila can probably put it in the chat there. She does everything. But that is a way for, if you come in contact with anyone that says they're not registered or they want to register, and or if they want to check their registration or check their location of their polling, where they've actually cast their ballots. All of that information is there at that website. So we're strongly encouraging you push to register, especially the youth. You may come in contact with some youth or relatives that are not registered to vote. Next, the other programs that we're running right now are, this is a huge one, is our 100% voting congregation campaign. Being that a foundation of our organization is consisting of different denominations and faith traditions, we are partnering with a number of congregations, and some that may not have even been related to our organization before. They're coming along with us for the ride to become 100% voting. They want to have every member in their congregation voting.
So Robert touched on the fact that congregations and faith communities make such a difference in elections, such as this year's, and having that norm of everyone voting. Obviously, you're not going to walk to the polls with everyone, but you can ensure that everyone in your congregation is registered, everyone is aware of the upcoming election, and everyone is educated about the candidates. And this commitment, our goal is to get 300 congregations around Virginia signed up as 100% voting congregations. We currently have 30, so we're 10% of the way there. If your congregation is not yet fully committed, follow the link that I will actually put in the chat and not kick you out of the meeting again, and go ahead and sign the commitment or send it along to a member of your congregation's leadership. Robert, take it away. I'm so sorry once again for that breakup in the middle of our meeting.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you. So Sheila covered the 100, followed up on the 100% voting campaign. Again, it's a big drive of ours that we're trying to push forward. Next, we're doing civic engagement training. We recently did one in Virginia Beach, and we do have another one scheduled in Hampton coming up. Sheila may speak about that when she talks after me, but we do have another training coming out there where we educate the citizens on the redistricting, how that affects you. We talk to you about voter engagement and things that voter engagement and other things that you can partner with the Interfaith Center on. So I'll let Sheila talk about that. Also, VICPP is going to be working in the area of election protection. In that area, we are going to work as poll monitors. We have on our website, virginiainterfaithcenter.org, under civic engagement, there is a place, section there where you can register to be a poll monitor. And on the website, they have tutorials where it will show you and train you on what you would have to do. And also, it will allow you to select the location that's in your area. We've already reached out to the person or the organization that is running this through for the whole Commonwealth, but we've selected polling locations in our chapter areas or areas where we have large denominations and things of that nature. So feel free to, when you go under civic engagement on our website and go, if you want to do election protection, again, this is going to be very important that we, have monitors, because from time to time, sometimes folks do encounter problems at the polls. And again, your job would not be like to be a police officer. It's just to be able to offer assistance. If someone just was confused, you could say, here's a 1-800 number where you can call and get information. So we are supporting that effort. I mentioned briefly about canvassing. We are looking to have 2 Saturdays right prior to the election. That is going to be on October the 28th and November the 4th. We will have designated areas that we will be looking to do canvassing. And again, when we go out to our neighbors and friends to encourage them to vote, we do not tell them who to vote for, but we just want everyone to participate in the electoral process. And you'll hear more information about that coming on October the 28th and the 4th. Let's see, I talked about postcarding, election protection, canvassing. I talked about voter registration. Lastly, we want to encourage on the get out the vote. That is going to be the final piece of all of our civic engagement program for this year, is to get out the vote. And we're encouraging everyone to, I know if you're on this call, your mindset is already, the importance of the elections and things of that nature. But we're encouraging people to partner. When you go to the poll, don't go alone. Go with a neighbor, go with a friend, offer to give someone a ride. If you're in a congregation, offer to ask leadership if they can provide transportation, maybe if they have a van or something like that. But take a little initiative on this to get people to the polls. It's very, very important. Kim talked about the issues and policies that we want to work on in the next General Assembly. So it's just going to be very important that we get folks out to the polls. Next Friday is the first day you can vote at your registrar's office, and we encourage you to do that. That's next Friday, the 22nd. October the 16th is is the last day to register to vote, and November the 7th is election day. And when I tell you about November the 7th is election day, and combining that with our deadline to register to vote is October the 16th, there may be someone after October the 16th that is not registered. In Virginia, we do have the ability to cast, to do a provisional cast a provisional ballot at the place of your voting at your polling location. They do have to have some ID, or actually you could just go there and say, I want to cast my vote and where you live, they would document it and things of that nature. So we do have same day voting or same day registration so that you can vote if you miss that October the 16th date. But we want to be out front because this election is too important. And I think I used enough time there, and I'm going to transition over to Sheila.
And I just want to apologize again about the technical difficulties. We have covered all of the things. So since we're a little over with the shuffle, I just want to thank you all. Please do reach out to myself, to Robert, if you have questions about 100% voting, about the Williamsburg candidates events, or about any support we can offer as we prepare for this election. I'm turning it immediately back over to John.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you, Robert, and thank you, Kim. Yeah, we are running a little bit behind here. So, Sheila, if you could pull up the video for the Raw Tools event in April, that would be great. So, just to set up the video for everybody, we're going to shift gears a little bit and focus on the issue of gun violence in our community. So, the James River chapter a couple years ago felt very strongly and passionately about the issue of gun violence in our community. And so this was a new area for us. So we needed a way to figure out how to approach the issue at the community level. And we came across an organization called Raw Tools. And for those of you who haven't heard about Raw Tools, it is a faith-based organization that takes guns that are donated from the community and decommissions them, cuts them up into parts, and then uses the parts for works of art. So we actually had a Raw Tools event with Shay Claiborne, who is the founder of Raw Tools in the Philadelphia area, the national founder for Raw Tools. His name is Mike Martin, and he's out of Colorado Springs, Colorado. And we've been fortunate to have both Mike Martin and Shay Claiborne speak to the James River chapter at our previous meetings. And back in April of 2022 of this year, we had Shay Claiborne come out and host a Raw Tools event at St. John's Church of God in Christ in Newport News. So we actually were fortunate to have two local TV stations show up and provide coverage. And one of them was Wavy 10 News. And so the reporter who was from Wavy 10, her name is Michelle Wolf. And Michelle Wolf actually was so impressed with the event and the impact that it had on the community, they actually decided to run it on their Take Back the Community segment for Wavy 10 News. And so this is the video of the event that you'll be seeing here in a moment. So if you could go ahead and roll that for us, Sheila, that would be great. Thank you.
The James River chapter of the Virginia Interfaith Center not only wants to end gun violence, but transform its impact on the community. The center is partnering with Raw Tools, a Philadelphia-based organization that takes guns and forges them into garden tools. Transforming weapons that can lead to death into tools of life.
This is what a gun looks like when it gets born again.
An initiative with biblical origins.
Yeah, it really came from that idea of beating swords into plows and spears into pruning hooks. The Bible speaks of that.
Its impact reshaping the Newport News community and sowing hope where violence bore destruction.
The cycles of violence that entrap us are not all that there is.
Whoever came up with this leg vice was a genius.
The James River chapter of the Virginia Interfaith Center partnered with Raw Tools of Philadelphia at St. John's Church of God in Christ in Newport News. Each spark igniting the fire to fight gun violence.
Every time we do it, we're sort of declaring that all things can be made new. That metal can be recrafted, but so can our hearts. You know, hearts that have done violence can be reshaped.
A partnership years in the making.
Oh, this has evolved actually over almost a 2-year period of time.
We are going to be taking an opportunity to give a voice to those who have been impacted by gun violence.
Shane Claiborne, who founded Raw Tools, travels all over the country, encouraging folks to take back their neighborhoods. Claiborne says the visits have become cathartic for those who have lost loved ones to gun violence.
We're also honoring people's pain and their grief, the trauma people have experienced.
Claiborne tells 10 on Your Side there's several ways he receives guns, some from the public, others from municipalities and law enforcement.
You know, this isn't just a bunch of folks coming there from out of town, saying a bunch of stuff to make ourselves feel better and then leaving. This really is about trying to invest in our community here in Newport News.
Keep hope alive. Know that there is a greater power.
These two were made from shotgun barrels.
With a hiss of his forge and the pound of a hammer, Scotty Oots, an Asheville-based blacksmith, turns agents of death into bearers of life.
You know, we come to kind of get behind the community and organizations like the ones that are sponsoring this event today and say, we're with you. And we just bring the forge and say, let's change things.
The James River chapter of the Virginia Interfaith Center tells me the gardening tools created out of surrendered guns will be donated to community gardening initiatives. They also hope to open a raw tool shop in Hampton Roads like the one in Philadelphia, where folks can decommission firearms into gardening tools. Michelle Wolf, 10 on Your Side.
So the event was very impactful and successful, and it was the first step in the process of the vision to have decommissioning sites locally for people to donate their guns from the community. And so the closest decommissioning site is actually in Philadelphia, where Shane has his workshop and where he decommissions guns. So the goal is to identify and to set up local decommissioning sites. And so, and talk with Mike Martin, the founder of Raw Tools. He recommended us participating in a program through the Presbyterian Peace Fellowship. And so it's a 5-week course that discusses gun violence and a way to do the logistics and setting up a decommissioning site, safe surrender gun program. And so Michael Burnett, who you saw in the video, who was actually accidentally identified as myself. I wish that was really me. He had hair and about 30 years younger than I am. But anyway, so Michael Burnett, he's a pastor in the Newport News area, and myself did participate in the Presbyterian Peace Fellowship Action Circle. And one of the mentors was the Reverend Roslyn Hughes, who is a rector at the Epiphany Church in Euclid, Ohio. And so she has been kind enough. I invited Roslyn to join us so she can share with you the Gun to Gardens program. And it actually was, and I don't mean to steal your thunder, Roslyn, a board member of Raw Tools actually, and you can correct me, Roslyn, if I don't have this information correct, but a board member of Raw Tools actually partnered or is part of the Presbyterian Peace Fellowship and set up this program as the way I understand it. But without further ado, I welcome Roslyn. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you, John, for that introduction, and for the invitation to be with you today. Yeah, I'm Roslyn Hughes. I'm actually an Episcopal priest, but I hang out with the Presbyterian Peace Fellowship for the purposes of doing this work. The more we can get together, the more impact we can have in our communities. So you've heard a little bit about Guns to Gardens already. It's a movement among faith-based organizations across the country to intervene in gun violence. And as you've heard, Raw Tools has been piloting a ministry of dismantling and remaking guns into garden tools and jewelry and artwork. And I think Shane Claiborne said it beautifully on that video. In June 2022, we held our first national series of safe surrender gun dismantling events, seeking to promote public safety and confidence by dismantling surrendered firearms and inspiring alternatives to violence through the transformation of those guns into garden tools and similar life-giving items. And the beauty of doing that event was that small congregations like mine, I have 30 to 40 people on a Sunday morning in my little church in an inner-ring suburb of Cleveland, Ohio. We were able to put on a whole gun safe surrender event for our community. And over the past 2 years, we've taken in, I want to say, about 76 guns and dismantled those and remade them into other things. So Guns to Gardens is a direct challenge to the myth that we're safer with guns everywhere. And American congregations and citizens are starting that work of reducing the number of guns by offering a way responsibly to dispose of them without returning them to the gun market where they could do future harm. The Presbyterian Peace Fellowship model, and I'm going to just drop their link in the chat, by the way. The Presbyterian Peace Fellowship model talks about 3 aspects of Guns to Gardens and why faith communities are the right places to host this initiative and this ministry. One is, they call it the 3 Ps. One is practical. Guns to Gardens is a practical service that congregations can provide to responsibly reduce the number of guns in their communities. There are many reasons why community members may want to dispose of a gun. Some are inherited and were never wanted. Some are in homes where there are growing children. Some are in places where a person is in increasing danger of harm to themselves or another. We hear all sorts of stories coming through our parking lots, which takes me to the second P, pastoral. These guns that come in hold memories often, some good and some painful. And the faith community is an appropriate host to accompany a gun donor as they watch while their gun is dismantled by volunteers using chop saws. They may appreciate a moment of prayer or silence or simply someone to share their story with. And if you start to ask how many lives in your own congregation have been impacted by guns and gun violence, you may be surprised at the stories that pour forth. We know that we're a nation traumatized by violence and we need healing, and that's what our faith communities excel at. And the third P is prophetic. For citizens to voluntarily rid their homes and communities of unwanted guns is to turn the myth of guns everywhere upside down. And for faith communities to facilitate this process is to show that the love of God stands on the side of saving lives and preventing gun violence, whether through suicide or family violence, stolen guns or unintentional shootings. And by turning the guns into garden tools, we demonstrate that biblical vision that God creates us to live in gardens and not battlefields. So I'm going to ask Sheila to start sharing those pictures from our little event at our little church as I continue to tell you a little more about Guns to Gardens. That's our parking lot that got transformed into a safe surrender site for the day. And you can just scroll through at your leisure, Sheila. So Guns to Gardens can use the skills of many people in your congregation, from publicity to pastoral care to somebody who's better at a site diagram than I can draw, to pastoral care for those who donate guns, to operating power tools, safely handling the guns themselves. And the concept is this: invite people in your community to safely surrender guns that they no longer want. Dismantle the gun by cutting it up with a chop saw power tool, send the leftover parts to raw tools, or partner with a local blacksmith to have the parts turned into garden tools or other works of art. And our vision is that congregations across the nation will be known as safe places to dismantle unwanted guns and prevent those firearms from causing harm. So to sum up, these safe surrender events promote public safety by giving individuals and family members the opportunity safely to dispose of unwanted or unsecured guns to help reduce the risk of homicides, suicides, unintentional shootings, domestic violence, and keep guns from getting into the wrong hands. These events are just one part. We understand they're just one part of a multifaceted approach to end the gun violence public health crisis in our nation. And these events help to elevate the conversations on the dangers of having a gun in the home and in our communities and promote safe storage practices. Some organizations pair the safe surrender event with a gun lock giveaway or other safe storage promotions. Finally, a Safe Surrender Guns to Gardens event is anonymous, 100% voluntary. It doesn't interfere with anybody's right or ability to own a gun in that respect. It is apolitical. that transformation of guns into gardening tools is just another step in interrupting violence through the promotion of life-giving, community-building action. It's a visible way of living into the words of the prophets, if you're familiar with Micah. They shall build their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. They shall sit under their own vines and under their own fig trees. And again, I put in the chat the link to the Presbyterian Peace Fellowship gun violence page. They have a digital toolkit, a Guns to Gardens brochure to introduce the concept to congregations, safety cards for congregations to give out, and the sign-up links for the action circle that John mentioned, that 5-week program that takes you through from start to finish how to set up a Guns to Gardens event in your own community. And we learn from each other in those circles.
Great. Thank you so much, Roslyn. I know we're running over a little bit of time-wise, but does anybody have a quick question for Roslyn before we move on to the next person? Okay, so the next step is to set up a decommissioning site, and then once that's been established, we also would like to have a local blacksmith and artists who can turn these gun parts into garden tools and works of art. The next person I'm excited to have with us this afternoon, her name is January Serta, and January is part of a program in the Newport News area called Hand in Hand. And Sheila, can you pull up the flyer for the Hand in Hand program for us, please? And while she's doing that, I just wanted to let you know that I had an opportunity to meet January at Pastor Charles Cheek's. It's called a Lunch and Talk program or meeting. And so it's a meeting of all local community organizations. And I was fortunate enough to participate a couple months ago in this meeting. And I had an opportunity to meet January, and she had shared with me regarding this program called Hand in Hand. So this program is definitely providing nourishment for the community in the Newport News area and bringing healing to people who are impacted by and traumatized by gun violence in the community. So January, thank you for being with us today. And if you could share a little bit about what you do there and the program, I think everyone would be very interested in what you have to say. So I'll turn it over to you, January.
Thank you very much, John. Good afternoon, everybody. So as John pointed out, we are a violence intervention program that's actually based out of Riverside Regional Hospital. We work under our trauma services department and directly with our emergency department. A lot of you probably know that Riverside is the only trauma center on the peninsula. So all victims of severe violence, traumatic violence, gunshot wounds, assault, stabbings, they come through Riverside. The services that we provide are not only for residents of Newport News, it's the entire peninsula, really. Although we are a small team of 3, I'll drop our link website in the chat for you all. We are only able to provide our case management services to residents of Newport News, Hampton, and York County. We do not, Williamsburg is considered out of catchment, but we still provide bedside advocacy and support to victims of violence that come to us from Williamsburg, Poquoson, all the surrounding areas. A lot of what that looks like once they're discharged from the hospital is connecting them to community resources and community partners in the community and being more like a warm handoff type of situation. But as John pointed out, you know, it's an evidence-based model that in the hospital, we have a very unique window and opportunity to approach victims of violence after being, you know, victims of something very traumatic in their life, where they're really contemplating their life choices and maybe making some changes. Our medical team provides excellent medical care, but their job is primarily just to patch them up and make sure that they're physically okay. What our program does is we have trauma-informed, culturally competent staff members who meet patients and families at bedside to provide that support and advocacy and to talk to them about some potential life changes that they're interested in making in hopes of reducing recidivism and curbing re-injury as well. Not all patients decide to enroll in our services. If patients do decide to enroll, it's up to 1 year of case management, intensive case management, to work with the individual and their family in hopes of reducing risk factors of violence and promoting positive alternatives of violence, because our primary goal is to reduce re-injury rates and then of course curb retaliation. We've been at Riverside since 2019. And then as we all know, we went through COVID. So the program took a very slow beginning. But as you guys know, this year has been a very violent year so far in 2023. So we've definitely ramped up services. We're currently funded through the Department of Justice. We just received 2 more years of funding. So I know that we will be at Riverside for at least 2 more years, but we're not necessarily integrated in the healthcare system just yet. That's something that we're still fighting to advocate for, because it's services that are desperately needed in this community. Like I said, even though we don't provide case management to folks out in Williamsburg, if you do come across someone who's been a victim of violence or a surviving parent who's lost a child or a loved one to violence, please don't hesitate to reach out, because even if there's something that our services can't provide, we do have a lot of community partners that we're connected with that we could hopefully maybe find the services and support that that individual or family might need.
Great, January, and specifically your role with the Hand in Hand program is a fund grant person or coordinator.
I'm the program coordinator. We have 2 clinical intervention specialists and myself. I do provide case management as well, but my core responsibility is the management of the DCJS grant, and then to continue to search for more grant funding and to make sure that the community and the healthcare system itself knows that we actually exist and are a resource to our patients that come through our trauma center.
Well, congratulations on the 2-year grant extension or a continuation, because it's a very valuable and wonderful resource for the community. So hopefully the Hand in Hand program will extend to other parts of the country and will be something that will flourish over the years. So thank you for all that you do for the community and being here with us this afternoon.
Well,
thank you for being with us. Any quick questions for January before we let her go? Okay. All right. So the next, I'd like to introduce everybody to Pastor Charles Cheeks. Many of us know Pastor Charles Cheek, and we're happy that he's with us today. He is a very busy person. He's heavily involved in the community. He's quite the activist and mover and shaker. And it's been a privilege to get to know Pastor Charles Cheek over the past several months and join him for some projects. But I did want to let you know that he is the coordinator, and I asked him to talk for a few minutes regarding a program called Back to the Garden. And so Pastor Charles Cheek is the coordinator for the Hampton Roads chapter of Christian Community Development Network. And so thank you for being with us, Pastor Cheek, and I will turn it over to you.
All right, thanks, John. You just call me Charles unless you're writing a check. So anyway, I'm glad to be here with you guys. The Back to the Garden program that John refers to is actually called Hope for Hampton and Newport News Garden Project. The project really started last year by accident when 2 city agencies in Hampton were arguing over a turf battle with these young people working in the garden. So we as the faith community stepped in and said, you guys can stop arguing, we'll pay these kids and we'll take them on. So this year we decided to expand the program out some, and we actually had originally 5 churches signed up that were giving up land and wanted to host a garden site to employ these young people. But, you know, being as it is in the Baptist world and Presbyterian and Episcopal and everybody else. When it gets down to the real work and who's going to do it, people started having second thoughts. So we ended up with one site, which was good. And I figured by God's design, he was saying, you guys need to work out the kinks before we really grow up. And so this year we did it at one site at Parkview Baptist Church, and we had 7 young people that came from all walks of life. Some were going into their first year of college, and some others were from the court system, referred from the court system, juvenile court system. It was a very engaging opportunity. These young people learned how to garden, and they learned how life skills, and they learned how to work with one another, and they definitely learned how to work in 100 degrees humidity outside. It was along that line, being as beneficial as it was, we decided that we need to expand the program out more. So next year, we're hoping that we bring on more sites and that we'll be able to employ more teenagers. As part of that, Department of Juvenile Justice came on board. They looked at what we were doing statewide, and this program is working out of our Marketplace Resource Center in Hampton. The Marketplace Resource Center is actually a collection of nonprofits and other organizations who we gathered under one roof to supply services to the community. It's like a one-stop center for not only folks who are coming out of prison, but also folks in the community that can come in and get everything from mental health to, I don't know, housing and a whole host of activities and services. And so the Garden Project is under that. We were fortunate this year that we did get a grant from Orphans Promise, which is the Foundation of Christian Broadcast Network. Was very interested in what we were doing, so we were able to fund these young people's salaries. Yes, we do pay these young folks a salary, a very handsome salary. They get more than they get at the fast food place. And besides getting a salary, they also get these life skills, not just for them, but also for their family. So it's a wraparound service. As a result of that activity, we're actually going on the road starting the end of this month. There are churches across the state who, fortunately, the Department of Juvenile Justice has been talking us up. And so there are clusters of churches in different parts of the state that want to start the same thing. So I'll be going on the road, talking to these clusters of churches across the state, starting the end of this month. So anyway, there's a lot more I could talk about, but I know we're running behind time, and I don't want to be the one to hold you up between to get to your lunch, because my stomach is growling also.
Thank you, Charles. Any quick questions for Charles? Okay, so just to wrap up, as you can see, there's a lot of opportunities to participate in different types of activities and projects. And so I did want to put in a plug for the Day for All People. Sheila, have we set up a date for a Day for All People for 2024?
It will be January 17th, the Wednesday after Martin Luther King Jr. Day. There is not a registration page yet, but that is probably coming next month. But January 17th, mark your calendar to come to Richmond.
I encourage everybody to go to the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy's website. There's chock full of information on everything that's going on. It's pretty comprehensive. So if you haven't been on there, I encourage everybody to hop on there and check it out. As far as other opportunities, as we mentioned, we're in the process of identifying locations for decommissioning sites. So if you are a member of a church congregation that might be interested in this, or have myself come out and talk to your people at the church regarding the Guns to Garden program, or anything else regarding raw tools or what we're trying to do here at the James River chapter, please feel free to contact me. And the candidate symposium here in the Williamsburg area will be a week from today on Thursday. So if you're able to attend, just to clarify the event, the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy, the NAACP York, James City County, Williamsburg chapter, and League of Women's Voters all partnered to make this event happen. And we're all nonpartisan organizations, so invitations went out to all the candidates to participate in this event. Unfortunately, several of the candidates did not choose to participate in this program. So because it's a nonpartisan event, and quite frankly, it was the Republican candidates who did not accept the invitation, even though it was a nonpartisan event, they will not be participating. Consequently, the event has been changed into a kind of a meet and greet with the candidates. So just a little background context for that, but it isn't still an excellent opportunity to get to meet the candidates from those Jessica Anderson, Monty Mason, and and there'll be a couple other candidates as well. But point being is that it's a good opportunity to get to know those people as well. So we worked very hard to make this happen. So please join us if you're able. So anything else that Sheila or Robert, you want to include before we sign off?
I'm good, John. All good.
Okay. All right. So Reverend Dr. Anthony Flood will do the closing prayer for us. And so Reverend Dr. Anthony Flood is the chairman of the board for the Virginia Interfaith, and he's also the assistant pastor at St. John's Church of Christ. And we thank Reverend Anthony to be with us this afternoon and to do the closing prayer.
Thank you, John, for your leadership, especially for the James River chapter. We are certainly grateful for Kim Bobo and Robert Lester and Sheila, the Virginia Interfaith Center of Public Policy. We are grateful for you. Let us bow our head. Blessed is our time together. May it provide nourishment for us and our respected communities of faiths. Enable us as we leave this virtual space to carry forth what we have learned about nourishment for community starving for justice. Let this benediction, this prayer, help us by turning our thoughts towards charity, our hearts toward justice, and our hands towards the work of peace. Amen.